Hello, Wolfpack. I'm Catastrophe.
And I'm Wolf.
And today we'll be doing a special list, the top 10 best episodes of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. A lot of people think that we hate the show, considering that we give a lot of bad reviews to the more recent episodes. But many might find it hard to believe that the show was actually good in some of its earlier seasons, and there are episodes we actually like. This is that list of the top 10 episodes we actually like on the show. Now, this is just our silly opinion, so if one of your favorite episodes didn't make it on the list, don't take it personally. It's all for entertainment. Or should I say wolf entertainment.
Shadow drop.
So, let's get this list on the run, starting with our number 10. The Crystal Empire, Part 1 and Part 2, of course. The Crystal Empire, a lot of people didn't like it at first, mostly because King Sombra didn't exactly play a huge role as a villain. However, it's just like what Lily Pete said.
When Sombra was in it, like Lily Pete said, he was a looming threat that was constantly over them. He could come in whenever he sort of wanted to, but struggled, and when the shield finally broke and the shadows surrounded, you could feel the tension about to happen.
This episode also did mainly focus less on Sombra and more on Twilight's character development, because Twilight, being the intelligent pony that she is, mistakes saving the Crystal Empire as just a cheap test instead of a battle to the death with a satanic archetype.
Don't forget, this also expanded the universe of Equestria that we know of.
Yes, it turns out that Princess Cadance and her husband, Shining Armor, come back, and this is their kingdom, the Crystal Empire, which Celestia is now turning over leadership to them, because apparently she has that in her power. However, the former leader, King Sombra, one of the enemies, resurrects and wants to fight them for it. So in order to defeat King Sombra, or should I say MLP's version of Sauron, they have to restore the Crystal Heart. However, they don't know how, and that's pretty much the episode of them finding out how they can restore the Crystal Heart.
It also had, like, the first and probably only character death.
Yes, King Sombra isn't just killed, he's obliterated when the Crystal Heart reactivates.
Right on screen.
Yep, first major MLP death, and it was glorious. Crystal Empire, while not exactly like the most critically acclaimed episode, it was a pretty decent premiere, and compared to more recent season premieres, Crystal Empire definitely did have a sense of tension and fear that a lot of the other premieres are starting to lack less and less of. But the Crystal Empire is one of the best episodes and deserves the number 10 spot.
Let's move on to our number 9.
Crusaders of the Lost Mark.
I'm leaving all this to you.
Yes, Wolf didn't care much for the Crusaders of the Lost Mark episode, mostly because of how it was handled. And we'll start with the cons to this episode first. Yes, it is major BS that Diamond Tiara was forgiven for all the horrible things she's done in the series. I'm not kidding. The Crusaders completely forgive Diamond Tiara when they find out she has an abusive mother, which is kind of bad writing, because all this is supposed to explain Diamond Tiara's behavior. She was abused as a child, and that's why she became evil. I have a hard time buying that, even for MLP standards. However, it does kind of prove what a lot of fans theorize, that the Crusaders would all get their mark at the same time, and it would be linked to Diamond Tiara accidentally helping them unlock it. And it was true. However, one thing that it might find weird is this should have marked the end of the Crusaders episode, since they finally got their marks and found their place in life. But the writers still think they could squeeze more entertainment out of them, so we're getting more lamer and lamer episodes of the Crusaders. But Crusaders of the Lost Mark is definitely a major highlight of the series, since it does mark a change in our characters. There are a lot of great songs in here, and I do like how the Crusaders are mostly more optimistic in this episode to signal their change of character, seeing as how every other episode they were always depressed when they didn't get their marks and would just move on to the next zany scheme to come up with them. Here the Crusaders learn to be patient and wait for their cutie marks, only to ironically earn their cutie marks right when they start changing their attitude. Yes, it did feel kind of rushed that this is how the Crusaders finally improved their characters, but Crusaders of the Lost Mark was a very deep and entertaining episode, and I do like to compare it to the Magical Mystery Cure episode because of how it was handled and did mark a major change in the series. Crusaders of the Lost Mark, whether you like it or not, it did show major change in the CMC, our supporting characters.
Now then, Number 8. Wait, this is our number 8? Magical Mystery Cure? This was a great episode.
Yes, but the fans kind of disagree with it. One of the major flaws of this episode is, like, Twilight suddenly grows wings and becomes an alicorn, which you have to admit is kind of weird because there was no foreshadowing and no build-up whatsoever. Twilight just dies, comes back, and sprouts wings.
True, and with only 13 episodes in the season, it could have been seen as the series finale.
That's true. This was originally supposed to be the series finale, but everybody loved it so much that this episode ironically saved the series by making us want to see more of Twilight now that she's a princess.
And spawned a movie.
That's true. Right after this came the first major MLP movie, Equestria Girls. But Magical Mystery Cure was definitely a huge episode in the series, mainly because of the dramatic impact it did have. And ironically, Twilight's Princess episodes would be lackluster in comparison to this. Though Magical Mystery Cure did have a lot of great songs, and did show major changes in our character, precisely Twilight realizing that she's not always right, and that she does make mistakes that she has to fix on her own. Which is ironic considering the princesses never usually get responsibility, but this defies that by showing that Twilight gained her title as princess because she was so responsible. Magical Mystery Cure, definitely a good episode worthy to be on this list because it did more to improve the series than it did sabotage, and it is regarded as one of the best episodes because of its change of character.
It does contain one of my favorite songs, though.
Next is our number 7.
A Canterlot Wedding. Obviously, I'm pretty sure no one knows this, but this was actually the first episode I saw. It was like late at night, and I only saw clips of the ending of the first part, and I'm like, wait, fires from hell and Twilight getting sent there? How is this My Little Pony? So then I looked at it, and I still love the episode to this day. Sure, there are a lot better ones, but it was my first one. Gotta have that bias to it. The story of it is kind of weak in the beginning, though. I mean, Twilight has a brother that we just know of now. Okay, and he's getting married. Okay, I'm glad she didn't get any invite to that until just now. And she didn't get any notice of it from Celestia. Once we actually meet the brother, he seems alright. It's a shame that that appearance was never kept up in the later episodes that followed. Good job, writers. Make shining armor good in the first episode and a giant pussy everywhere else. Princess Cadence, when she was first introduced, you could obviously tell that, okay, either she's the villain or there's something up, which in part 2, it was shown that something's up. It's an imposter, by Kathleen Barr. Whoopee. Other than that, it does get better and better. We see that Twilight is fighting against Cadence, or Chrysalis, who has the appearance of a higher princess, and of course everyone would doubt her, to the point where even Celestia doubts her. To get that from Celestia, that was kind of great character for each of them. It shows that she doesn't always trust Twilight. Other than that, Luna coming in at the end, the final song wasn't all that great. There's a lot wrong with this, but because it's that close to me, it deserves above Magical Mystery Cure. Sorry to anyone who hates this episode.
Number 6. Amending Fences. Yes, not all the episodes on this list are season finales and premieres. Amending Fences actually takes place in between Season 5, I believe, where this time we focus on Twilight actually not being a good friend. We reference the very beginning of the series, Friendship is Magic, that first minute scene where we're introduced to Twilight. If you don't remember, Twilight completely dismissed the idea of friendship, and her friends at Canterlot invited her to a party, which she completely turned down. And ironically, this had a lot of horrible consequences on the friends she coldly rejected. It turns out that her friend Moondancer went insane and became isolated. Moondancer now spends most of the time, ironically, acting like Twilight, being isolated, dismissing friendship, and being obsessed with books and nothing else. However, Twilight returns to Canterlot to make amends with her friends and restore the friendship she completely dismissed as useless back when she used to be a jerk. However, while 3 of her friends do forgive her, reality ensues, and it turns out Moondancer does not forgive her because Moondancer was actually hurt by the fact that Twilight didn't consider them friends. So the entire episode is basically about Twilight trying to reform and make up with Moondancer. Very deep and emotional episode, I must say. Moondancer is kind of like realistically angry at this, and Twilight does desperately want to fix her friendship with her. This is also the first time Kazumi Evans voices a character who's not over the top in this episode, by actually being the emotional Moondancer, and she does do a pretty great job at it.
The only bad part out there is that Twilight wins in the end. It's when I watch the series, of course they always win, but at times with this plot, it would have been better if they hadn't really fully became friends again. Like if Moondancer still had some hatred towards her, but could slightly call her friend. But MLP, we can't do that. They have to become friends, then shipping.
While Amending Fences doesn't have the most action-packed episode and kind of a predictable ending, it definitely does feel as one of the more emotional episodes that do show hints of a deeper series in the My Little Pony franchise. Number 5.
Gauntlet of Fire, the greatest Spike episode ever.
Yep, it's true. There is a such thing as a good Spike episode. This episode finally dives into the dragon lore. Ironically, 6 seasons in and we haven't learned anything about Spike or his people, but this episode finally rectified that. It turns out the dragons are summoned to a dragon summit by the Dragon Lord so he can pass on the dragon staff to the next Dragon Lord.
Yep, a lot of dragons.
But what did you like about this episode, Wolf? Why is this the best Spike episode?
It gives Spike so much more to kind of aspire to be as well. He could have become the Dragon Lord in this episode, but he passed it down to Ember, who is the daughter of the current Lord Whitehill Dragon.
Yes, that's one thing that might kind of piss you off, is that Spike completely gives up his important title of Dragon Lord to go back to his abusive lifestyle of getting beaten every day by his so-called friends.
Right, plus Twilight and Rarity, they were completely useless in it other than as a checkpoint and to make sure that the episode was, and to make sure that it's still a My Little Pony episode.
What are you talking about? Twilight now has a new powerful ally she can ask dragon questions to.
True, but throughout the entire episode, she was always in disguise.
Yeah, but it introduced one of the series' best characters, Princess Ember, who's now Dragon Lord Ember thanks to taking over for Spike.
Hasbro, please don't keep calling her Princess Ember. Please don't.
Yeah, call her Dragon Lord Emperor. Now that she's in power, she deserves an important title outside of Dumb Princess. The Gauntlet of Fire is one of the more action-packed episodes, since we do see the dragons are competing to become the next Dragon Lord. It's kind of like a competition arc.
And this episode helped give me the idea for one of my most recent fan fictions. I'll put a link in the description below.
Yes, and we do see that Spike actually is important, until, of course, the show's natural status comes by and says, no, he's not, he's going back to his abuse.
It's a shame the next episode gets shoved into a suitcase.
Let's hope that they continue making good dragon episodes and good Spike episodes like the Gauntlet of Fire. Number 4, Lesson 0.
Oh my god, this was so funny.
Yes, this episode is definitely the funniest episode of the My Little Pony series. It came after a very intense season premiere, and it did lay a very positive impression for the rest of the season. Season 2 is often considered one of the best seasons in the show so far. Lesson 0 basically is about Twilight realizing that she hasn't sent a letter to Celestia because ever since season 1 she's been sending a letter every week to Celestia about what friendship lesson she learned. And big shock, she didn't learn a lesson at all this week because she was fighting for her life against a reality warper. However, Twilight, of course, goes nuts and tries to make up a friendship lesson so she can give it to Celestia and look like a good student, even though Spike keeps pointing out that Celestia doesn't need a letter every week, but of course the show feels like it needs to address why we're not getting enough friendship lessons in more of the recent episodes they're about to come up with.
It was a good episode as well for Twilight's character, as this is the third episode of Season 2, and Season 1 we just got sort of a taste of Twilight. This goes to show how much she values her place as Celestia's student, and how far she will go to maintain that sort of status.
Yes, we do dive more into Twilight's characters. We see our main hero is not as stable, no pun intended, as she seems. As we see, Twilight slowly goes crazy in this episode, to the point of pretty much stalking and harassing children, and causing a huge problem in order to have a problem she can solve. Plus, it did give our favorite scene of Fluttershy neck snapping a bear.
And also after this episode is what led to the other main characters having to write friendship letters to Celestia.
Yes, this episode marks that Twilight didn't need to appear in every episode to report on the friendship lesson that would be conveyed in the series. We could actually see her friends get more episodes to themselves and less Twilight appearances in them. Lesson 0 is definitely a more humorous episode on the lighter side, and it does show My Little Pony's comedy at its best. I do recommend watching this one at least a few times. Lesson 0 is worthy to be high up on this list.
Number 3.
The Cutie Remark. This was, right now as of today, the most recent season finale, back in ending the Starlight arc. Ever since the Cutie map made Starlight one of the most evil villains, this was the finale everybody was hoping to be a final brutal battle against two powerful unicorns to determine the fate of Equestria.
Don't forget, it was also hyped with the end of the Friendship Games movie.
That's true. It turned out that, spoiler alert, time travel is canon to My Little Pony. Starlight has finally mastered Star Swirl the Bearded's time travel spell, and is using it to go back in time to stop Rainbow Dash from doing the Sonic Rainboom, which would create their marks and unite them as friends who would one day defend Equestria in the future. However, by doing this, Starlight accidentally allows other villains that the ponies face to rule the world in different alternate timelines. And, of course, here's where the source of fan fiction comes in, as we do see each villain, King Sombra, Chrysalis, Nightmare Moon, and others, conquer the world in their own scenario, as Twilight keeps going into a different dimension.
It was great the entire way through, up until the ending.
Yes, the weakest part of the episode is that it is very predictable. Starlight Glimmer is, of course, talked out of it, and she reforms, sees the error of her ways, befriends Twilight, sings a song about being good, and, of course, gets shipped with all of them. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I did kind of see this coming, and Wolf admits it, but he hated that it all happened too. The ending might be kind of a downside to this episode, considering that it is predictable. They didn't do a straight-up fight like the season kept building up to be, and Starlight did become the 7th official cast member, which is still kind of controversial to this day. While others do like Starlight Glimmer, some still argue that she should have been a stronger villain this episode. But it's not mostly about Starlight destroying the world. It's about Twilight realizing that she and her friends play an important part in Equestria. The Cutie Remark definitely was intense and was very liked by fans, but the ending is the weakest part, which is why it's not high up on this list. But the Cutie Remark did give the fans what it wanted, a lot of fan fiction. Cutie Remark, while not the best exactly above the other two coming up, it was definitely an intense episode that everybody wanted to tune in for, which is why it deserves to be on this list.
Number 2.
Return to Harmony. This, I have to say, was the best season premiere ever. This introduces us to a great villain, great drama, and great action, and explores all the characters in the main 6. Return to Harmony is about a villain named Discord who would instantly become a fan favorite in the series because he's played by John Delancey, the actor who played Q on Star Trek The Next Generation. And Discord is pretty much exactly like Q in every way. In the show, it turns out Discord was a former enemy of Celestia and Luna who was turned to stone, but unfortunately, the Cutie Mark Crusaders, being the great heroes that they are, accidentally released them by having a friendship disruption between them. So Discord is set free from his stone tomb and now wreaks havoc, bringing chaos to the world of Equestria. So Celestia demands that the main 6 fight them, because apparently she's too cowardly to stand up to Discord for another time.
That bites her in the ass later, as Discord, by sending them through his maze and his web of games in it, they don't win the first part.
And this does lead to the funniest part in the show. The main six all become complete jerks. Discord, instead of straight up killing them, decides to do worse and sever their friendship by corrupting each and every one of them by turning them into the exact opposite of their element. Pinkie Pie becomes depressed, Rarity becomes greedy, not much of a change there. Applejack becomes a liar, Rainbow Dash becomes disloyal, and Fluttershy becomes a total jerk.
And Twilight becomes depressed.
I guess that's the opposite of magic, but okay. But yeah, it was pretty funny seeing the friends act like the exact opposite of they are, and pretty much being hostile to Twilight, who's the only one trying to be proactive in the second part. Discord did actually win in the first part, which was definitely a step over the series' first villain, Nightmare Moon, because she didn't exactly win, she just showed up. For Discord, he actually won and broke the friendship apart, and Twilight does briefly give up hope, being one of the most successful villains in the series to ever break Twilight's spirit until future villains would come. Discord was definitely an intriguing villain because he had more of a reason to destroy the world because he's evil and likes to cause chaos since he's the god of discord and chaos.
This was also back when Spike abuse was actually funny as well.
Yes, Spike's abuse was pretty funny, especially since it was kind of justified since the friends were turned evil temporarily and had a reason to abuse Spike, right before it became messed up and they were pretty much abusing him when they were their normal selves. I smell Discord's brainwashing still in them. But Return to Harmony is the best season premiere ever, though you might complain that Discord is kind of defeated anticlimactically because he does get overconfident in himself like most villains in the show.
His overconfidence was his weakness.
Your faith in your friends is yours. Oh wait, no it's not because you're powered by friendship. But Return to Harmony is one of the best episodes, I have to say. And I do recommend this one to be watched by a lot of fans, mostly because it's not as action-packed, but it is comedy and there is a lot of drama in it, especially between the friends. And finally, we reach our number one. What can it be?
It's pretty obvious, actually.
Twilight's Kingdom, Part 1 and 2, of course. Twilight's Kingdom is the best season finale ever. This is the episode that pretty much showed that My Little Pony was more than just a children's show. This one added a lot for the adult fans and more mature viewers, and did show that it does believe that its children fans can handle intense violence and brutal storytelling.
I'll just say this, all you need to see in this episode is the fight sequence. That is the only thing you need to see, and you will know why this is the greatest episode.
Yes, the fighting style is like almost something right out of Dragon Ball Z. It was that intense. Princess Twilight actually fights a monster named T-Rex, who I swear is the My Little Pony version of Satan. Which does kind of make sense since he did escape Tartarus, and he is seen as the destroyer of worlds. So T-Rex escapes, and everything that a lot of fans have been looking forward to, the keys, Discord's possible chance of returning to evil, all brought up in this episode, and Twilight is forced to fight in a death battle with him.
And they actually just reach a stalemate in the first battle.
And to get more intense, Discord turns out betrayed his friends and gave them as hostages to T-Rex. Ironically, only for T-Rex to, of course, turn on him and take him as a hostage, too. So Twilight is given the choice of either surrendering her powers
or just continue fighting, I guess.
Yeah, sure. But we won't spoil it for you. Twilight's Kingdom was the most intense episode of My Little Pony, and shows just how far the show could go, before we got more worse written episodes after that. But Twilight's Kingdom, I still have to say, is one of the best ever made. Well, we hope you liked this video of ours. We hope you'll tune in next time for future videos on our site. If there was an episode that you liked that didn't make the list, please post it in the comments. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and tune in next time for more videos here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm Catastrophe.
And I'm Wolf.
And we'll see you all later.
Bye-bye.